Hey lovely sexy hobby people, welcome to today's video, which is going to be the flick through, a catch-up flick through for White Dwarf issue 512. We have Death Guard Contagion, Chosen of Nurgle go viral in this issue. We also have our bunker missions, so the 40k one is called Lead from the Front, and the Sigma is Power Struggle. So there you go. We also got some cards. So we've got a couple more paint recipe cards. They seem to be bread and butter in a lot of these giveaways, but we also have these malign disease cards, which are for Effects of War article later on in the magazine. So let's crack on, shall we? Planet Warhammer, readers models, nice colourful great unclean one there. And something I really liked the look of was this tank transporter. Really well done. Really well done. I would probably turn around and say that you're looking at a thing which is conversion and scratch building extraordinaire going on here. They used the cab from a Torux and then wheels from a Ridge Hauler to provide wheels and axes, and then a lot of the trailer itself was scratch built with obvious kit bashing and conversions on the Torux cab unit. But it does remind me very much of things like the Scamel tank transporter or Mighty Antar that the Brits used to use in their tank transporting. We have a really nice Indrasta Celestial Spear here. Loving the colours on this for obvious reasons. And then we have some Gargants here, some Orc Gargants. Scratch built by the look of it. And then we're into the Plague God, selecting writings on Nurgle and his followers. So there's a lot of background fluff here for Nurgle and things like the Death Guard, etc. Demons of Nurgle as well, talking about here. Yeah, lots of background fluff on this. Cult of the Seven-Fingered, Children of the Sump, the Withering Stem, and then we have Gloaming Blades. Phlegmus Gollum smiled as he watched a human soldier stagger blindly out of a doorway, his face and hands so covered in weeping pustules that his eyes were swollen shut and his contorted fingers were unable to maintain their grip on his lasgun. So this sounds like it's a little bit of fiction, potentially, or just a little bit of fiction to introduce the Gloaming Blades combat patrol here. So it looks like we have some Poxwalkers, some Nurglings, Death Guard, Gloaming Blades combat patrol. So default enhancement is Norslop, optional enhancement is Festa Flute, default secondary objective is Wellsprings of Foulness, optional secondary objectives Legacy of Lamentation, and then for stratagems you have Fever Glow, Strength from Dread, and Cloying Contagion. And then your cards for the various units in the combat patrol. Phlegmus Gloam is your combat patrol leader. Then you have some Plague Marines, you have some Plague Bearers, Plague Drones, and Nurglings. Aspects of war. So this is where your cards come in. So we have some different. So they've all either got 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4 on the bottom of these. Aspects of war are variant game modes for Warhammer 40,000 that give you new and different ways to play. This time the battlefield has become tainted by Grandfather Nurgle. Where the power of the Plague God Nurgle waxes fat, the fabric of reality begins to decay. Supernatural foulness seeps through the veil of the festering depths of the warp to spread ever more virulent maladies across rot-choked battlefields and reduce battling armies to mouldering ruin. So there you go. So at the end of each player's turn, so increasing infection level. So you get to increase the infection level, by the look of it, of your enemy. Heralds of Nurgle. We have another great unclean one here. Some Death Guard Plague Marines. And the Blighted Swarm by Steve. So this is Maggot-kin forces heavily based around Pascoil, Blight Lords and Plague Drones. United Zolcathine clone baronies of Druardidy. That's like just wrong. Ruerid, I'm going to say. Fantastic conversions for a plague infested knights army. And then Third Vectorium of Mortarian's Anvil by Doug. And again, we have a really nice rendition of Mortarion here. The Cohort of Eckhart by Alexander. The Blessed Grandsons by Dominic. The Weeping Legion by Jim. Knight Rampager by Mark. Nice conversion here for a Nurgle infested knight. And then Kit Bash Corner, some of the bits and pieces that they've used to kit bash some of the miniatures. Hobby Hangout. Painting rust and grime on vehicles and other stuff. Grime on black. Rusty streaks, gritty rust, crumbly rust, oily metal, copper oxide, verdigris, and then even more verdigris. Data Exlode, the Grey Knights, a sanctioned scrying of this most mysterious of chapters. This looks like a little bit of background fluff for the 666 Legion. Okay, the Grey Knights have seized countless sorcerous grimoires and infernal weapons from Chaos. Worshippers over the millennia, they keep them locked away in the chambers of purity. Unlike almost all other servants of the Emperor, the Grey Knights are also trusted to use these magics and weapons of chaos against the servants of the ruinous powers, confident that they alone will not be corrupted. We just have some Grey Knight heraldry here as well. So from the 1st to the 8th Brotherhood. And every Grey Knight Battle Brother carries a copy of the Liber Demonica in a ceramite case upon their chest plate of his armour. Yeah, just loads of little factoids, background fluff factoids for the Grey Knights. Right, this was an interesting article, and it's basically portraits of war. And what people have done is they've used miniatures in the forefront of a deep picture frame, and then obviously a painted picture at the back. So these figures here are all miniatures, and then there's the picture at the back of that picture frame. Really interesting way of doing it, and I like some of the pictures. So we've got like Necromunda gang here, some more Space Marines, Sigmar, excuse me, Vilka Fenrica, so Space Wolves. We have Minkalesk here, the last white shield. Gardens of Nurgle, Harbinger of Decay. And yeah, just like looking at the way that these are painted and then put into the frame is fantastic. Right, Battle at Fort Dakbad, Flashpoint Nazca. So a bit more background fluff on Nazca here. And then we go into being able to play that game, that particular scenario. Reclaim the fort, so Battle for Fort Dakbad. Set up and the various bits that you need to do it. Then heavy metal or heavy metal brush tips. Are these the Flesh Eater Courts? These are Soulblight Gravelords. So we've got White King and White Lord on skeletal steeds. Then we have some Death Rattle skeletons. We have plenty of paint call-outs here to how they did it. Barrow Guard, Barrow Knights, and how they've done it. And then Prince Vaudrey. That is magnificent. What is that? Lord of the Crimson Keep and head of the Castelli dynasty. His vampiric followers wear blood red armour, so it seemed only fitting the Vaudrey should too. Doesn't say what the steed is. Revenant Draconith. Nice. And then Warhammer Underworlds, Glory Points, Nemesis deck building in the new edition. So talking about how to build your deck ready for games. And then we have a Warhammer Underworld basic training article. And then Words of the Rohirrim. Now, I have yet to watch the War of the Rohirrim film. I need to get round to it, but I do like the fact that we've got new Lord of the Rings miniatures into the collection. Absolutely fantastic. And painting tutorials for how to paint your Warriors of Rohan. Hill Tribesmen, basing and shading. And then Black Library, The Trials of Albarak, A Death of Stone, part 1 of 5. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 pages for that. And then access granted for the bunker. Just going through the fluff for the bunker. Kill Team League. And Kill Team Focus on Ben's Felgor Ravagers. They look like beastmen. And Sam and Matt. Player Diary, Sam and Matt. Alright, yeah, it's just transmission talking about stuff that they've done. Satellite uplink, we have showing off your monsters and machines. That's a really nice colour scheme for Crisis Battlesuits there. We have an Ambot, an Azert, Medusa Siege Gun, and an Old World Giant. Fantastic. Wood Elves team. This looks like Blood Bowl. Some desert versions for Sentinels. A Ironworld Great Cannon. Legions Imperialis, Warlord Titan. And then a Primaris Firestrike Servo turret. I turned mine into a remote sensor turret, basically. I removed the gunner and cut it down. Turned mine into sort of like a tarantula type gun. And then we have the White Dwarf team play Bunker Bingo, and this really nice looking Imperial Fists Ballista Dreadnought. And your answers, possible answers to orders, sir. Right, so I hope you enjoyed that catch up for White Dwarf issue 512, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Alright, take care. Bye bye.